scratch, wampum, dough, sugar, clams, loot, bills, bones, bread, bucks, money. Money is, at its essence, that measure.
Welcome to the Ozark Podcast, presented by the Joe Blow Football Show. I'm Jamie G. Esquire the Fifth, MD, Master of Surgical Arts. He's Magnum Mills, and we're about to break down the first episode of Season 4 of Ozark, The Beginning of the End. The Beginning of the End. Released January 21st, 2022. Boy, the name is really fitting here, as this is literally the final season of the show Ozark. This episode was directed by Andrew Bernstein. This was his fourth episode of Ozark that he's directed. Written by Chris Mundy, guest starring McKinley Belcher III as FBI agent Trevor Evans, Nelson Bonilla as Nelson, Carson Holmes as 3 Langmore, Robert C. Trevalier as Sheriff John Nix, and Bruno Bachar as Navier's priest. Plot summary here: Marty and Wendy wrestle with a problematic offer. Ruth goes out on her own. Jonah rebels, and Omar's nephew makes his presence known. Magnum Mills, walk us through some of the notable callbacks and appearances in episode 1.
On the show, it appears not very much time has passed, but for us, several years have passed since the last time we checked in with these characters. And, one of the first things we do here, we check back in with, FBI agent Trevor Evans, who was a bigger fixture in previous seasons. And we've been seeing a lot less of him recently as Maya Miller is now our basic main FBI person. But we're once again dealing with the Snells not wanting to give up their heroin trade. I feel like we've been here before. We are introduced to Navarro's nephew, Javier, and private investigator Mel Satin. We've seen this thing. It seems that Javier is basically going to be our new Dell, our new Helen. He's the new cartel guy who's going to be possibly embedded with the Birds. And this episode marks the final appearance of Sheriff Nix.
Yeah, so this was for me, just giving an overview, Magnum Mills, of episode 1 of season 4 of Ozark. For me, this was kind of everything I wanted in an Ozark episode. It kind of had everything in there for me. At first with the beginning scene of them in the van and the accident, right? I mean, that just screamed the prolific, amazing work that Breaking Bad did with their foreshadowing and planning, future scenes early on and showing you them. I really enjoyed that in Breaking Bad. And again, this show has been compared to Breaking Bad in terms of maybe trying to be like them a little bit too much here and there, but this actually worked for me, and it's got me kind of wondering, and we can talk about what that meant to us or what we thought, but it can go a couple ways, and I think that's pretty cool, and it's something that we'll get to eventually as season 4 wraps out. But I like this one, man. It picked up the same momentum that left off with season 3 right into season 4, and here we are with the Birds with a brand new host of problems, introduced some new characters, and as you mentioned, Sheriff John Nix took one in the dome, dude, straight up in the dome piece, shot and killed. Magnum Mills, for me, overall, I like this episode, man. I really did. I thought they did a good job creating the drama that is surely to ensue with this divide between Ruth and the Birds, particularly Wendy, but of course, Ruth is not happy with Marty either. And then Jonah's rebel here is a real thing, man. Homie's got a couple hair on his nuts, and he's being like, you know what, I hate my parents, and he knows everything. And so in reality, asking a 14-year-old to be okay with the fact that his parents had his uncle killed is a terrible thing, right? So I mean, he's having a hard time with it, obviously, but I did like this episode. I thought they did a good job with this one, Magnum Mills. We'll talk specifics in a little bit. What were your overview, just your general thoughts here?
Same basic feelings. The cold opening with the obviously we're spoiling all of the events from the first episode of Ozark. For the record, we have seen the first 3 episodes, nothing past that, but we will only be spoiling episode 1 here. It opens with the accident or whatever, and then you cut away with it. So obviously it's a flash forward. That's cool, but it definitely sets up something. My initial thought was it's kind of a fake out, and that's going to be how the family attempts to get away, late in the thing, but we don't know if that, we're probably going to see this either at the end of this kind of part 1 of season 4, or it might be all the way at the end of part 2 of season 4. So, you know, it's definitely going to be something that we're going to be on the lookout for. And I think tonally, this really matched up well with season 3. It basically felt like an honest carry through from season 3 to season 4 here, despite the time delay since the last time we have seen them in, you know, our world. From season 1 to 2 and then 2 to 3, sometimes it felt like drastically different shows almost. This is really, I think, the first time where there's a nice sense of continuity here. I liked how they're setting up the various possible team ups here. They're obviously putting you know, everyone's going to be on sides. It's looking maybe it might even be a 3-way. You're going to have 3 different kind of parties going at it. It's not even going to be a 1-on-1 war. So you don't know. You're kind of waiting to see who's going to team up and get the 2-on-1, beat the other side, and then, you know, split obviously to fight each other for supremacy or whatever. I think the show is doing a good job about that. They've really done a nicer job with the kids, enjoying that quite a bit more. Still have no idea really what to do with Wyatt, but, you know, what are you going to do? And obviously, you know, you got to have that ream, dude, because, you know, Ruth rules everything around me. The ream, dude.
Ream, big time. The one thing at Magnum Mills, one thing I want to talk about with Wyatt is I think they finally might have found something here. And that is essentially pinning him between Darlene and Ruth as that thing builds. And it doesn't sound like much, but quite honestly, I think this is the biggest opportunity Wyatt has had where they do something with him. And it's a big deal, dude. Like, Ruth is real serious. She about it when it comes to her family, bro. And like her cousins, I mean, she literally, family means everything to her. And so I think it's a real big deal. Like what could potentially build here with Wyatt. Maybe he takes Darlene's side, because you can just tell, even though Ruth is teaming up with Darlene here, you can't really trust Darlene Snell, man. We said it before. She's straight up Charlie in the back of the van selling gas, dude. I mean, she's wild card, bitches, and she means it. Like she literally could be the craziest character on the show. Like, you just don't know what she's going to do, and that's saying something considering we now have multiple members of the cartel. She, to me, I think there's going to be a beef there, is my prediction, between her and Ruth. And I think Wyatt's going to finally play a role as he figures out his way in the middle. So with that said, Magnum Mills, let's talk specifics here, buddy. Let's get down to brass tacks on the Ozark podcast. I want to talk a little likes, man. Let's get into this thing. You mentioned the kids. Let's start there. Could this be Jonah and Charlotte's breaking out party a little bit? It kind of feels like it, right?
I mean, this kind of tees up from, if you have listened to our previous show, we did our predictions. One of my predictions was that the kids would eventually take over the empire, kind of, that it would somehow end up being a team up with like Jonah and Ruth and Charlotte and Wyatt or whatever, and they would run like the whole thing better, and kind of like somehow the parents would take the fall, or you know, I don't know the specifics, but that was kind of the idea. And you see, you know, a little bit of that here. You know, I definitely think with the kids that I'll save a little bit of it for my dislikes. I do very much like Jonah, like stepping out on his own thing. And he's not really being crazy. Like, because he really had connections with Buddy and then Ben. And I think losing both of them. And then I think the final straw is when he comes back and he sees his parents helping them put Sheriff Nix's body into the van or whatever, not knowing that they didn't really have anything to do with that. Like, I mean, they may have unintentionally caused it, but they weren't actively, but he thinks like, oh yeah, my parents are like, this is who they are. So you kind of get it a little bit. Charlotte, I actually really, this is the most I've liked Charlotte pretty easily. It does seem that they're trying to make her kind of like Wendy, basically. Like, if you watch, I think she's even doing her performance to try and kind of mirror Laura Linney. And I think that's really cool. I think, you know, they're also doing Jonah as, you know, very much Marty's son. So I think they are trying to really do this reflection of, you know, the sins of the parents reflected upon the children, or vice, you know, nature, nurture, that kind of thing. So actually, yeah, I would say 75 to 85% of the kids' plot line is now on the plus side for me, which is huge, because previously it was like 10%.
I'm in agreement with that, man. I mean, I think that they maybe finally figured something out with him here, and they've kind of cleared the deck of other characters. It's not so convoluted, or maybe they can start to emerge here, and we'll see what they do with you know, we kind of have a direction of what's happening with Jonah, right? As he's kind of rebelling against the birds and looking like he's going to end up with Ruth and them over there. And we also know that he's understands the components of laundering money and could potentially do that. So, I mean, there's definitely, we see his path. I'm curious to see what they do with Charlotte, right? Does she get her own mission? Does she take on a bigger role? She clearly feels like she's going to side with her parents a little bit here. And so I'm curious to see what they do with her. And I like, you know, your point of she's becoming a little bit like Wendy, and that's great. So I'm excited to see what they do with the kids. And I think that was needed in this, because before it was like, all right, well, they know everything, but damn, dude, like what's happening there? Mills, let's start at the beginning, dude. We both have opinions on the cold open. Love it or hate it, dude. Like gun to your peener. Like what was your initial on this? Like, do you like that they did this, or you're like, that sucks, I wish they wouldn't have?
You're gonna be the Frank Jr. That's what you're gonna be, the Frank Jr.
I'm be the Frank Jr.
I like it because again, I think it sets it the idea that there's going to be ultimate stakes. The idea that they just stay in the Ozark and like the status quo kind of just goes on or whatever, and it ends that way is off the table. One way or the other, we're going to get some sort of conclusion. I think that's one thing you really wanted. So I don't really have a problem with it. I don't generally mind the flash forward when it's used like this, kind of over the long term. Not a huge fan when it's used like within an episode to like find a way to give depth to a character who didn't have one before, or cover a plot hole or something. This, feels like they have enough time to build up with it. They knew that they had this final order of these 14 episodes in 2 parts that would be the end of the show. So they had time to work towards this conclusion, I feel. And honestly, given the way Netflix is run, I would imagine they never really expected to get more than this. Like, I think this, basically is a 5-season run, more or less, just with a short and kind of 4th and 5th season. I think this is roughly about what the writers should have expected going in. So I'd expected, that they generally would have had a satisfying conclusion in mind that's going to fit with, the timeline as far as the number of episodes they begin.
Yeah, and I like it too, man, because I think honestly that like it would be cool in a way that they come back to that, like the final episode, right? Like maybe we wait like all 14 out, from 1, and then it comes back 14, and maybe it's sprinkled in little pieces of it to kind of build some depth around that story throughout. But I like it. Yes, it reminded me of Breaking Bad, and maybe we should talk about that a little bit. Like early on in season 1, you were kind of like, man, this is like, it was almost a little bit of a dislike for you. And guys, if you have not, anyone who's listening to this, if you have not watched Breaking Bad, like do yourself a favor and just go do it immediately. Like that should be the next thing you watch, like tonight. Like as soon as you hear this, be like, get off this podcast and be like, yo, Jamie G and Magnum Mills are those dudes, but like immediately I'm going and watching Breaking Bad, like just straight up. Magnum Mills, for you, did obviously reminiscent. They did it masterfully throughout Breaking Bad. Was that a negative for you with this, or did it not bother you at all? And you just like, appreciated the cold open?
2-part answer, Jamie G. First, if you're actually going to do the Breaking Bad thing, I would recommend starting with Better Call Saul, which is a prequel, working your way into Breaking Bad. Trust me, very much enjoy it. Part 2 is really, I don't mind this, but last year, I believe it was season 3, to do the cartel war thing, they did the Mexico scene down there with kind of the massacre with the money. And then, again, those were both things I've seen on Breaking Bad. You could say it's an homage or whatever. It didn't bother me. I don't think it was, original or anything, but, that's fine. As long as it pays off overall, I'd say, at least if not thematically, like from a writing standpoint, it makes sense. They didn't just show it to be shocking or something like that. I don't know necessarily that we got that from the 3rd season as far as the cartel thing. I think they were just trying to emphasize the cartel war. But I think when they did the hit on the baptism against Navarro, like that pretty much showed it. I almost don't think you really needed that you could have just shown a news report or something. I don't think you needed that whole cold open to get that done. But here it sets up different stakes. There we didn't really care. Like it was a one-off. Here that it involves all of our main characters, basically, or at least all of the birds. So that obviously carries a lot more weight. So I really don't mind it.
Yeah, no, I agreed. It was a cool way to open it, and it sets the stage for something. I just got to say, man, that was an accident. That's like, dude, if somebody didn't die in that shit, like, do you come out of that thing alive? Like, I don't know, man. Like that was a vicious accident. That was some like shit, man. That looked like death.
You're dead,
for everyone
yeah,
involved.
that's even
yeah,
with
like
the modern stuff, and they were all buckled up here and deep. That's a big roll, hard impact. Might not get help for a minute, given whether that's
upside
great,
down.
Bob.
Like
so one thing I think I reserved the right to like for now. I might change around, but that's Javi, the nephew of Navarro, who we meet here, who's going to be our new cartel guy, more or less. And like I think they're trying to do almost a combination where he feels like as dangerous as Del, but as smart as Helen. I think the guy, it kind of pulls it off. He is like both charming and intimidating, like Del was, but he always kind of got the idea that Del knew his place. He wasn't trying to like push the boundaries that much. He was there to do his job, whereas Helen, like, she was trying to be on the come up And I think this guy, they're trying to combine both of those things and also make him maybe a legitimate threat. Like his, like, you know, he jokes about like, oh, you know, he come after me or whatever. So, you know, maybe that is where they go ultimately. Like the birds is a breaking point, and then he actually tries to overthrow his uncle, or, you know.
Yep.
So something like that. Maybe how'd you feel about Javier?
Yeah, no, I same thing. I think I'll probably end up hating him, but I think he's a great character, and I'm excited about what they're doing there. I mean, we talked about it every season. They have to have somebody. It can't always be Omar Navarro, right? So they have to have somebody who kind of representing the cartel, who's kind of this loose cannon. But you're right, dude. I like him. He's got the ambition, right? I think there's tension building clearly between him and his uncle Navarro. And I think, you know, you just get the impression he thinks he can run this thing better and wants to. And he sees the birds, I think, as a massive chess piece and a critical piece to whatever it is he wants to do. But you got to believe it's more than oversee what's going on in the Ozarks. So I like him here. He kind of fits the mold, like you said. I mean, he's kind of a perfect blend between Helen and Del, you know, but almost more dangerous. And well, not almost, he is more dangerous because he's family and he has his own agenda. He's family to Navarro and he has his own damn agenda. Del was content with his role. Now, Helen had her own agenda, but she wasn't family, bro, right? She was the gringo attorney. This dude's family.
Like this dude could potentially take over. Like Helen never could have actually taken over the organization, right. Whereas this dude legitimately has a chance, especially if, you know, I don't want to speak on, we said we won't spoil future episodes, but there's, you know, again, they can provide other reasons where he might, you know, question the leadership of his uncle. Yep. And let's talk about the other new character real quick. And I like the performance, but I'm not sure what his role will be. And that's the private investigator, Mel Satin. I don't like the dude kind of like did a good job of playing like this, like a dude who like he knows his shit. He's obviously got some other agenda or whatever. And he's like kind of like charming but slimy or whatever. So I like it, but I just don't know. I feel like this late in the game, I'm just not sure, you know, is this a guy who's really going to stick around, or is he just there to serve a purpose for a couple episodes, something like that? Do you have any thoughts on the dude?
Yeah, I don't see him making it. Well, no one's going to make it past this episode, but I'm not so sure he makes it past the first 7 run here. Again, I'm looking at it right now as all I can logically think is he's going to be just some sort of major pain in the ass for the birds. And, you know, throughout the first 3 episodes, again, we're only talking about episode 1, he has kind of proven to be so. You know, poking his nose around and sniffing around. But I do like the character a lot. If he makes it all season, that would be very cool. But I don't know what more they can do with him other than being a pain in the ass for the birds, because he's sniffing around and he knows his shit. He's a good PI. And that's the only thing I could see.
Do you think he actually worked for her ex-husband?
That's the only way they could go, is with some sort of twist like that. Like maybe he doesn't work representing the divorce. It might be something else. Maybe he's got some dirt on Helen. Maybe he's Helen's lover. Like, who knows, man? I mean, like that could be the only angle I think they could take, where there's some sort of connection to things. And maybe he's posing like that to try to, do something else in connection to the birds and what they're doing. So he could be somebody hired from a political adversary of Wendy's. Like, I mean, there's a lot of different angles they can go with that. And if that's the case, that's really cool. That was a smart way to kind of introduce a new character and keep you guessing and see where it goes. But if he's just a PI and his sole purpose is just nosing around and being a pain in the ass for the birds, then that's kind of a miss for me.
You know, I think the show has done a pretty good job of kind of balancing these things out when introducing new characters here. Characters, again, I think we both said we like the idea of the characters. We're just not sure what purpose they're going to serve, kind of. Obviously, They're probably going to be, in opposition to the characters we like, so we're not going to like them for that. It's just a question of, can they be, antagonists, like, not that you root for, but like you're excited when they come on screen and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of what I'm hoping for there. What other likes you got for me?
I got 2 Magnum Mills, and then we can move on to dislikes. Just 2 little things for me. One, I really like the flashback scene where it picked up with the birds after the Helen's got her head blown off right in front of them. Like, I thought that was kind of a unique moment when they're at this, the birthday party at Navarro's personal home, and they're in the bathroom cleaning out chunks of brain from their hair. And I really liked the cuts in and out to that. And then them coming out and kind of, it set the tone for kind of their new relationship with Navarro. And that to me was a real win and worked well. The other thing, dude, was the soundtrack was killer. Great usage of music in this. And I thought they did a good job blending the darkness of like Marty, you know, he's always in like darker colors and stuff. And just the overall, like how this show looks visually, I thought they brightened it up enough and kept a healthy balance there. So that's actually three things, but those were the three things that I liked that worked for me with this too.
I have a couple just more kind of the same thing that I'd like to throw out before we move into the dislikes. I do really like when Ruth bought the hotel motel joint, and then like they gonna give the keys, and then like she fucking fired her old fucking boss. Like that was like Ruth definitely is like a fucking boss bitch. Love that. And I kind of like they're maybe setting up some conflict here between Ruth and Charlotte. I think that could be pretty fucking cool. And again, I do like how the show lets all the characters know, like everyone knows about Wendy and Ben, and like, you know, a lot of shows, sometimes even the shows like The Sopranos were guilty of, they withhold certain information from certain characters to create conflict. I like how this show has made a habit of, they don't do that. They have some other tropes to fall into, but they basically, most of the characters are informed at all times. I like that. You know, I do like that, obviously, like putting Jonah in opposition to them. I think they've done a good job, especially setting it up by giving him those relationships with Buddy and Ben, as I mentioned before. And then when they're doing when Ruth's trying to sell Darlene on selling the heroin to the hippies or whatever, she comes up with shit, and I have a couple of notes here, and she calls it locally sourced heroin, and my favorite is the tagline, from farm to needle.
Yes,
that was that was pretty hysterical. You know, I would really hope that, you know, maybe Ruth has some kind of like master plan here, and that she's not really just being like angrily moving from party to party or whatever. But, you know, obviously I do really enjoy, you know, all of her plotline for the most part. And then like when Jonah goes back to the motel and like starts hanging out and drinking a beer with them all and everything, kind of when he agrees to launder for him, I think that's pretty great. And again, I have, again, same thing as you here. I have with the especially the old school hip hop soundtrack, and I always do enjoy the score for the show. So yeah, good, all good things I enjoyed.
Magnum Mills, real quick, the importance though of that scene with Wyatt and Ruth as they're talking about from farm to needle and, you know, locally sourced organic heroin, and like it was hilarious and it was very cool, but it showed a bond between Wyatt and Ruth, and it showed a jealous Darlene. And then later that night, Darlene's in bed with him and he's, "Are you happy?" You know, like it created just enough seed there to grow a little bit of a tension tree, I think, as we move forward between the dynamic of Ruth, Wyatt, and Darlene. We'll find out as we keep going. Magnum Mills, baby. Give me some dislikes on episode 1. I don't have a ton, dude. So this section of the podcast will probably be pretty short. Like, I don't really have a lot of dislikes on this one. You?
One that I have basically is, it's like, how smart is Marty Bird? How good is he? You know, at times he seems not incompetent, but just like, you know, he's a smart dude or whatever. But then you've made both the cartel and the FBI make him out to be like some sort of crazy savant. But now this year, all of a sudden, it's just about his software. Like, it's not like he can do it. It's just this software he made. Obviously, you should have to be good to make the software. But now you have Jonah who's like, oh yeah, I made my own software and it's better. Like, we keep playing games and stuff. We had never had an indication he was like a coder like this. This is not just something I don't think you could just pick up, really. It doesn't, or if like, you know, it was just Marty.
You're not born with the ability to do it. Like, it's not like
if Marty had this software, the cartel would have fucking murked him in 5 minutes and just taken the software, right? Like, there has to be more behind it than that, you know. And I mean, if they're trying to set Jonah up as being like literally like a super genius or whatever, I get that he was smart, but they didn't really establish that he was that smart. Like, we saw Marty initially, I think in like the second episode or whatever, like they're teaching him how to like put the money in the dryer. We don't really get a lot of like there's a little like, we don't get to the point where he would have taught Jonah all of these things. So I just don't know where he was supposed to pick them up again. That comes into my thing where I think the show again is inconsistent with the way it deals sometimes with the passage of time. You can't tell, and they don't really want to tell you.
Well, and see, that's the thing though, too, to that point. Let me just comment on that, because his, you know, the Bird kids, Jonah and Charlotte, look legitimately a lot older. And so then you've got the FBI detective, her baby's just been born, right? So, I mean, we're what, 6 to 9 months to a year max? Like, she's still on maternity leave, bro. So we're 3 months removed from, you know, maybe 6. She was about to bust in episode 3. So it's just hard to understand, okay, so is this right then? picking right back up. We also had the scene with Marty, and was that a flashback with Marty? And it couldn't have been, because Ruth attempted to steal Marty's software while they were in Mexico. So it's, it has to, for the storyline to work, pick back up like immediately, like a couple of months removed from season 3.
That's about the only time frame that really makes sense. You just have to kind of deal, like, the kids that's the one problem with casting kids. They grow faster than time passes on the show a lot of times. Just that's, welcome to puberty. That wasn't in my notes, but the one thing that is I am not really a fan of this whole legitimized Navarro plot. Like, I already really wasn't a fan of the turn Maya plot, and I didn't figure out how so the answer is they really didn't do it, but just basically told her they have to pretend that they did. Like it just doesn't seem to be like, I don't know, this dude's end game really. Like, my guess is if he really wanted to, he could find his way into the US by airtight IDs. He just would have to be careful about where he goes and shit or whatever. I don't know. It just doesn't seem really terribly realistic to me, even if the dude wanted to get out, that this is how he would do it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally see your point on that. I mean, I guess the validity of it, I can understand why they're doing this with him if it pays off and he has an ulterior motive. We don't know the real reason why, right? And he's using the birds, all this talk of letting the birds be done with their obligation to him. And I don't know, man, I'm not really buying that. So I think there's something else there. And this is just, it has to get there though. If this is in reality what he wants, is his way out because he fears he's about to die. I don't buy that a dude who's, the second largest, cartel boss of any organized drug kingpin in the world, who just had an attack on his enemy, be successful, is yeah, I'm having a change of heart, because one of my kids almost got shot. Yeah, who cares, dude? So I kind of agree with you, but it's got to be something more than that. As you would say, I think it may be more complex than that. And I think there's going to be something, a big kind of plot line twist, I'm hoping, that we just don't know yet. And when we find out, it's oh, snap. Okay, that's cool. That makes sense now. That's what I'm hoping for with it. If it doesn't deliver that, then yeah, it's bunk.
Man, just to finalize that, these were kind of sub notes here, but that, this plotline again propels Wendy back into the politics thing, the foundation or whatever. And she has a couple of good fucking lines when she just says literally I'm not fucking losing. That's definitely who she is now. She's gonna fucking win. And then she basically her plan is oh, when you're just I'm just gonna get all the money and then buy all the people. Well, okay, here we are.
Yeah, she is a bona fide stud in the political space for sure, dude. She understands how it works, and she's made some serious connections, particularly her boy Jim, who is the bull from fucking Californication, Bill. Bildo, as he would be referenced throughout the show. Anyways, digging a little deep there. Californication's also a cool show. But we're talking Ozark. This is the Ozark Podcast. Magnum Mills on the Ozark Podcast right now. Let's give this thing a final grade, buddy. I mean, we talked our likes, we talked our dislikes, we gave our overview here. I'm happy I watched it. It had me wanting to binge and get right into episode 2. I'll start us out here, man. I'm giving this a definitely a passing grade for me for being the first episode of what is the final season. I'm giving this dude a solid 8.3, dude. This is a high, this is not a B-. It's not quite a B+, but it's right on the precipice of B+ing, and B+ing hard at that.
Yeah, I mean, I love when she B+ing hard, but I would say I'm slightly higher than you on this one. I think I'm not as high on season 3, which I believe I put in that kind of that 92 range, that low 90s, it's soft A area. I would say this is a no return from 86, dude. 80, I was right in that range, kind of 85 to 88 or so. I really don't think there's a lot of problems with the episode. I just don't think there's a lot of super memorable moments out of it. And for a premiere, usually like to get one of those. And I would say they were probably hoping that would be that cold open, but because it is a cold open and we have seen that used before, I don't think it quite got there for me. Is that kind of being the big hook or whatever? But I'd say, yeah, 8.6 and 86. That's a nice B pluser. Maybe not the hardest B plus, but it's not soft either.
That's what she said.
It's not a soft B plus, and it's B plus and hard, almost. And being on the precipice there is good, guys. Thank you for listening to the Ozark Podcast. This was season 4, episode 1. literally the beginning of the end. Very amply titled. He is that dude, Magnum Mills from the Joe Blow Football Show. I am Jamie G from the Joe Blow Football Show. We're those guys. And this was the Ozark Podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, catch us on all your favorite podcast streaming apparatuses. Magnum Mills, let's give these people what they want. And that's time. Grab a drinky poo and get ready, because I think we're going to do episode 2. I am a poet and I didn't even know it.
That was our coverage of the first episode of season 4 of Ozark from Netflix. I'm Magnum Mills. That's Jamie G. Find us on your favorite podcast streaming platforms by just searching for the Ozark Podcast. You can find all of our content from the Joe Blow Football Show at joeblowfootballshow.com. Our Joe Blow Show is on social media at Joe Blow Show, and the Ozark Podcast is on social media at Ozark Podcast. Thank you for watching and or listening, and we will be back right now after this to cover episode 2 of season 4 of Ozark. And remember, money ain't good if it ain't clean.
I'm so fucking focused. Yeah.